Okay, well, my 30-minute pitch is that we're going to shake up the scientific publishing industry. We've got a new startup called Chemical Semantics. And what we're going to do is apply the semantic web to scientific publishing. Now, if you know what the semantic web is, most people don't. I'll get to that. But it's the next web, Web 3.0. And so I've been on the other side of these things. I'm a member of a Golden Triangle Angel Net in Canada, and if I was going to ask questions about the startup, I would say, who are the people involved, and do they know what they're doing? How do I trust them? How good are they? And what's this basic idea of this startup? So I'm going to start up with the people. There's two of us. We're old friends.
Time out. So the 90-second elevator pitch, is that what that was supposed to just be?
I think it was supposed to be a 30-second elevator pitch.
Okay, well, that's my first slide. Now we're going to the
So,
presentation. You want me to separate them?
Yeah, and actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, what they're really looking for in that 30-second elevator pitch is specifically condense everything down really within 30 seconds.
I guess I thought I did that.
Yeah. Well, if you did, then I would say that you had too many words, and again, I'm trying to give you constructive feedback. You really need to use fewer words that aren't telling me something. You need to really say, my company's about this. This is why we're special. Here's how we can make money.
I'm going to get to that.
But
it's my presentation.
I understand, but if the objective of the 30-second pitch was to, so you're on an elevator, you got 30 seconds, after that guy's gone.
Okay, so I got 12 minutes.
I understand. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, so there's two of us. I'm the founder and CEO of Hypercube Inc. We've been around for more than 25 years. We're a leader, a Canadian company. We're a leader in Molecular modeling. My partner in this is an old friend, Mirek Sopek. He's the CEO of a Mako Lab, which is a Polish company that's gone public. He, again, founded this company in 1989, been around for a long time. A little bit more background about myself. I'm a Woodrow Wilson Fellow. I got my PhD with Sir John Popel, the only Nobel Prize winner in computational chemistry. I was at Harvard University. I've been a professor in many places. One of my claims to fame is I've given up tenure twice, once in chemistry, once in computer science. I'm the author of a textbook called Modern Quantum Chemistry that's a Dover paperback, which is a very classic textbook in the subject. Mirek Sopek, on the other hand, is much smarter than I am, much better businessman, and somebody I have a great deal of respect for. He started with the end of the Soviet Union. He started a small company in Poland when Poland was free, and came to work for me in Canada for less than a year, or more or less. I lived in my house when I first came to Florida, and then went back from here to Poland and has a very successful public company. Their principal customer is Renault in France, and they do a lot of semantic web stuff for Renault. So I'll get to what the semantic web is here shortly, but the two of us have 50 years running software companies. So what is the idea? We're going to create publishing software for scientists that uses the semantic web. What does that mean? That means we're going to publish data, not just words, on the web. And we're going to create software to do this for computational chemists and biochemists to begin with. We might expand into the whole field of science eventually, but we're going to start with something we know intimately, which is computational chemistry. And so we're going to create publishing software, and we're going to create intelligent agent software that goes and finds this data out on the web. At the moment, you can't put data on the web. You can put text, but you can't put data. That's what the semantic web is all about. So we're going to create software for publishing and software for searching. Now, is this idea any good, this semantic web issue? And here I would like to quote Tim Berners-Lee. Al Gore did not invent the internet, but Tim Berners-Lee did invent the World Wide Web. And he's somebody that Mirek has talked to him. I actually haven't met him, but I think he would be very supportive of what we're doing. So to quote Tim Berners-Lee, An emerging successor to the web, that is the semantic web, will likely profoundly change the very nature of how scientific knowledge is produced and shared in ways that we can barely imagine. So what we're doing is taking the semantic web and attacking science publishing. Tim Berners-Lee testified before Congress on the digital future of the United States and said equivalent good things about the semantic web to Congress. So the web has different evolutions and generations. The original, you put a document on the web and it's read-only. The next version of the web, Facebook, YouTube, etc., users can actually contribute data to the web, so it becomes read-write. The semantic web is the next evolution, and again, I'm going to define this in various ways. If you're a Unix person, you might say instead of read or read-write, it's read-write-execute. The point is, you can do much more intelligent things with the semantic web than you can with the current web. So, the semantic web might be differentiated from the current web, which is the syntactical web, which has text. And Google can find keywords, but it can't find data. And so the semantic web is a group of technologies and methods that allow computers and machines to go to a website and understand what's there. So the semantics is meaning. Nothing on the web has meaning for a computer. It's not structured in a proper way. What you need is technologies like RDF files, resource description files that hold the data, and ontologies like OWL files that tell you what the data means, has the vocabulary of a domain like computational chemistry so that you understand the data. Don't just have the data, but computers can understand what's there. And then query languages for getting the data. I don't have time to talk about the technology really. Let me just quote Wikipedia. The semantic web aims at converting the current web, which is dominated by unstructured and semi-structured documents, into a web of data, an intelligent web. So competitors and allies, again, I don't have time to talk about this. Come back to competitors if you want. But at this moment in time, there are no semantic collections, either of experimental or of computational data, either chemistry or biochemistry, on the web. And we're going to change that. In terms of an ally, the European Molecular Biology Lab has some software that we're using. It's in the public domain. And they've started with an ontology of molecules. They don't have any ontologies and descriptions of what data you might put on the web, but they do have some starting points that we're using. So the scientific publishers, this is from an article in The Economist 2 months ago, entitled Academic Journals Face a Radical Shakeup. And the problem is, everybody's pissed off at the journals. They charge too much, they take too long, they have old tools, and the data that you'd like to publish is not available, you can't get to it. So there's a revolution coming. Elsevier, one of the larger scientific publishers, made a profit of more than $1 billion last year with a 37% margin. There's lots of profit out there, but it's not these companies are not doing the right thing for the scientific community. So the basic problem is you can't get to this data. It's hidden away in the laboratory or in the publications. Google can't find it. Publishers have old-fashioned tools, and we want to change that. There's just really no current good web framework for science. And so the solution is the semantic web. There's these tools and technology that one can apply to putting data onto the web. And we're either going to go around or we're going to work with publishers, depending on what their response is. There's lots of new online journals starting up by scientists themselves. So the product is software to publish the data, software to find the data, intelligent agents, software to go and look at all this global data around the world and do inference from it, to get new information out of existing data. We're going to sell application tools and services. We're going to have free versions as well as charged versions, a lot like the clients are probably going to be mostly free, and the server software will be charged for purchased by publishers, universities, enterprises of various kinds. We're going to have software as a service, where we might charge for high volume use and let people do demo and use it free for small uses. We're going to generate a bunch of tools that we will sell possibly to the publishers. The market, computational chemistry, I've put at 300 million. This is a kind of fuzzy number, but it's certainly not small. The scientific marketplace is certainly an order of magnitude bigger. The market for the semantic web in general is going to be another order of magnitude bigger than that. So we think we can have a prototype in 1 year. Software scientists must publish a pair, so we have a dedicated market, and we're going to try to have as much impact initially rather than try to worry about monetizing up front. We know the science channels, both Macolab and Hypercube, sell through those channels, have sold through them, know them. Scientists, you don't need to do a lot of advertising. Scientists work by word of mouth. The software will be found by using the web and downloading from the web and so on. And we want to establish a social network for scientists. There needs to be more discussion on the web between scientists, and part of this is to establish a social network. There's something called the computational chemistry list, which is relatively old-fashioned at the moment, but there needs to be a new social network, specifically for scientists. So, these founders, these two companies, we think we're very well qualified to do this. We intimately know the technologies. We've done business for 50 years. We want to recruit some young programming talent, hire a couple of senior managers, and get going. It's funded initially by the two companies. We've had SBIR money a number of times in the past. We think that that's available to us fairly straightforwardly. What we are soliciting at this moment is $1 million. Proceeds used to hire some senior managers to run the company and some developers to build the software. So that's my presentation. Thank you. There's these two entities, myself and my friend Merrick involved. Questions?
Let me just review, make sure I understand. So your product is going to be essentially the beginning of the infrastructure that would enable people to access data on the web as opposed to textual content.
Specifically, to begin with, for computational chemistry, because we're intimately familiar with all that data. We produce that data, and we sell software to scientists that produce that data. So that's where we can start. But we have in the back of our heads, bigger goals. This is a big, big market eventually. The semantic web is going to be the web. And if we get a good start, we're not limiting our sites.
So, tell me, if you had that product in hand, who specifically would you be going to purchase your app or your software, and what is the argument for why they need to purchase it?
Well, the scientist publishes the papers. The computational scientist creates huge reams of data these days. All scientists are creating a lot of data. A lot of experimental results, computational results. That data, they can sort of, well, I got a friend over at another university, maybe I'll send them a file sometime or other. But they cannot publish that data, and they can't get access to other people's data. They need to do so. They want to do so. They must do so.
If someone is using your software, and this goes to, I guess, now the mechanism underlying software, okay, so is the purchaser an individual researcher, or is it going to be a university so that all their people can use it? And when they install this software, can third parties access their data without also themselves owning some of your software?
Well, there's a number of components of this software. It isn't one piece of software. There's client software that sits on a computer, and one of the first pieces of data that we're going to use is Hypercube's HyperCam, which is a molecular monitoring product that produces all this data. And we're going to put modifications to HyperCam to take that data, instead of just putting it in a file and letting the customer use it, put it out on the web. And we're going to have modules for all the other computational packages that are out there that put that data out on the web. And then we need to build servers and server software that holds that data, and then you go to the web and you go and access those servers and see the data that's out there, see what you're interested in, see what's been produced over the last year that's relevant to you, and then software that can actually take the data and do intelligent things with it.
So I guess that and forgive me, I'm ignorant of,
Sure.
you know, a lot of what you're talking about. So again, you go into a university or whoever to buy this software, and the analogy I'm imagining is Adobe, you know, when they're trying to get everyone initially to use PDF. Anyone could open up a PDF file and they provided their reader software
For free. And we want to do the same
Is
thing.
that essentially the same thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
At the client level, that is something that an individual scientist has on his lap, on his tablet, on his iPad, or wherever he's doing what he's doing. We want to provide at least a modicum of free software that scientists can publish their data. And the university wants their scientists to publish data, and they might put in some servers themselves, but some fundamental component up front that the scientist uses would be free in general.
So if I'm a researcher, I'm publishing my data via your software, there is not going to be any barrier in the form of, you know, your friend at another university wants to get access to that. He doesn't going to have to fork out any money in order to get the software to access that data. Is that correct?
Well, one model is that both of those people get free client software, and the server software is all charged for. That's one model. The other model that's here is that, like Flickr, you have photos. You can get the first 100 photos free.
Okay.
But if you want to use Flickr seriously as a professional, you pay for Flickr.
Okay. Now the other, you mentioned that the data is going to have servers and so forth. Does that mean to say that this software and the system is going to be dependent upon your server infrastructure?
No, I mean, I think we may put up some servers for initially. Mako Lab in Poland runs big server software. They're a web, they host half of Europe over there. So they have big servers that they could use. But that's not the goal. The goal is to have server software that you sell the software. They can be hosted anywhere in the universe. But initially we'll have some of their own.
What's going to keep someone else from replicating what you're doing?
Well, depends on how fast you run. I mean, software is proprietary. You can't reproduce software trivially. You can eventually do so, but you don't. You either patent some of it, but generally, the faster you run, the better. And how much you dominate the market initially. I mean, people could come and are coming along and challenging Facebook and so on and so forth, but Facebook ran very fast initially and captured the market.
I'll shut up. Anyone else?
First of all, I apologize for being late. What I'm not clear about is this question on the presentation, or is this question for my understanding, or is this critiquing to understand it?
That's a good question.
But
That's
it's
the best question.
for me to understand more about the company, or to talk about the presentation?
From my perspective, you're not going to give me any money, and so you can criticize my presentation. That would be the better choice for me.
So I walked in late, so as I said, I apologize for that. I actually, as a product, I can see the man's public good. In terms of the presentation itself, where it lacks for me, and by the way, I'm in agreement with the fact that we have something like this, get it out there, make it the de facto, and then worry about making money on it afterwards if you can do that, because there will only be one of these if it happens, is my guess. So I'm fine with that. and you're the founder in terms of companies, but actually not a lot that was, you talked about your background and your credibility, and that was great, but in terms of, and I may have missed it, but your background from a business perspective and your partner's background, okay, he's made the lab, he's in Poland, and he did something, it was hard for me to make this relevant, specifically what this is and what the company is. And so, that to my mind is where I would get much more focused and say, so what? Great. I mean, it looks smart, it looks great, but so what? Why is it particularly relevant to this? And to me, giving you money for it was really important to me. You clearly can present very well, and I love the slides. What I would say though is there's so much content there.
Oh, I got too many.
Twice in a minute you said, I don't have time to go through this, and you hit the button and went on to the next thing. And for a little, to some degree, that's actually impressive.
These are existent slides. One of my colleagues talks about them as existent slides. You don't really expect people to look at them, but you want to know they exist.
Exactly, and that to some degree is, wow, that's a lot of data, that's great, and you move on to something. When I hear it more than once or twice, I say, well, why are you showing it to me? And so there's a balance there.
But the trouble, I'm giving a presentation tomorrow to computer scientists, and so I have, in some sense, a couple of presentations stuck into the same one.
And that may be it. What I would really like to see is real detail on
us as CEOs.
Well, that's one thing. That's one thing. The second thing is, you talked about the market and you threw a number up there, 3 billion, 3 trillion, 3 gajillion, whatever the numbers were. Not a lot of bottom-up logic to get to those, which I'd like to see at least a little bit, to show that you've done it. Not that I'm going to analyse it in the presentation, but show me that you've thought about it rather than just throw numbers with sequential zeros.
Did you guys never got access to the information that I presented in order to be allowed to present here?
No, but I wouldn't before I saw that typically anyway. So that may have helped me understand, but it wouldn't.
There was a little bit more about the market size in that material, but it's hard to do in 12 minutes.
But I think the hard part of 12 minutes is to choose what you're going to tell them.
Sure.
Not try and tell them, not try and squeeze everything in. What got me really nervous about this was not the fact that you want to reinvent the web. Not that that's a relatively large undertaking. As soon as you said, I want a social network in there as well, that just said to me, okay, I'm going everywhere. And my recommendation to you would be really focused, because social networks are 10 a penny today, and a gajillion people want to do them, and they all fail.
That should be potentially.
And I would.
Let somebody else do that, but we need dialogue about our software.
Right.
But that doesn't have to be done by us.
So I would absolutely focus on what you're doing.
It's a good.
A little bit of laxness in saying I'm going to hire a couple of managers. That makes me a little bit nervous, because I actually do care about rigor in thinking about it. But overall, I actually really like the presentation.
Yeah, well, Merrick and I are we've been talking about this for a long time. We're serious. We're doing this.
That's great.
But we can't. We still both got companies, and we can't do it 100% time, and so we need to hire some really good people to run this effort.
One other thing that was really important is exactly that point. And I see that slide. I got founder A with company A, founder B with company B. I'm not putting my money into either of those two companies. I'm going to put it into this one. So actually tell me about this one, who's going to run it, and why you're going to care even more than me about it being successful. And you have to figure out.
It's quite possible that both of us feel more emotional about this new company than we feel about either of our existing companies.
But you know, my reaction to that is you really, really care about the concept. I'm not sure you care about the company. And if the company fails, you take the concept and you go next door, and I'm left with nothing. So if you can tie them together, that I want to know that you care even more than me that I'm going to make a lot of money. How's that?
Yeah, well, yes. It's a little difficult, and quite honestly, we're up at the beginning. And we've decided we're doing this. We haven't even incorporated yet. And there's still some questions. We're meeting in November here, and I may go hold on to before the end of the year. There's an international semantic web conference in Boston that's coming up in November that America's going, and I think I'm going. But there are a lot of issues, quite honestly, that corporate issues that haven't been solved yet. We understand the technology very well. We understand we're going to do this. We understand that we've run companies for a long time, and we understand what is necessary. But this specific company hasn't been. We're not even sure we want to incorporate in the U.S.
So you understand how to run companies. I think when I was listening to this, to me the opportunity is amazing. Okay, and you obviously got the brain power behind it. I think what you're missing though is because the opportunity you're so tied in, you need to talk about that. I was 2/3 of the way or half the way into the presentation before I understood the problem of the solution. And you know, if you look at the web, you know, static, and then it became social, and this is the next leap, right? Mm-hmm. So I think your opportunity for a wow statement right up front about, you know, who would have thought, and there's statistics out there about the amount of knowledge that's been conveyed for 50 years, the same amount then went, I don't know what the numbers are, but they went down to 10 years, and now it's every 3 years. This has the potential to do that, I mean, it's amazing. I would encourage you to put that right up front, because then all of a sudden, when you start talking about yourselves and your background, I have a reason to listen. Until then, I don't really, you know, okay, so, you know, we live in a world of scientists, and you're obviously very smart, but give me a reason to want to know more about your background, because you have the potential to do something absolutely incredibly amazing. But you got to get people's attention before you start.
It does seem like it take a long time to get to what is this. This slide. I mean, I may be emphasizing Berners-Lee too much of it, but maybe this one gets you there faster than talking about Tim Berners-Lee.
I like this quote. I actually think this slide works well, but what I would say to James' point, at the point of your presentation, it's even more compelling than data. So if you can take this, for example, okay, great, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, but incorporate, well, this is how useful 1.0 was. Maybe it was knowledge every 50 years, one cycle of knowledge every 50 years, I don't know every day probably. You could say that we're accelerating it from maybe 10 years to every 6 weeks or something like that in terms of the usefulness. That's why it's going to be so compelling. If there is something data-driven in there, it makes it much more objective.
Well, and I think taking that to from a marketing side, marketing data, I understand the scientific data, there's a lot of information that could be made available to other scientists. But Google is in the data.
Yes.
And so bringing that to what commercial companies would want, they could use this to analyze marketing data.
Well, and one of the potential buyouts is that you sell it to Google. I mean, Google doesn't do anything about science at the moment. They do have some small efforts associated with the semantic web. There's Google snippets. I don't know if you've seen what a snippet is, but it's a first step towards doing some semantic things in Google. But they don't have scientists that don't do anything about scientific publishing. So,
you would know those, right?
Well, yes, I think that Google knows everything, but even a company as big as Google has some limitations.
You know, even a statement right up front that we can all relate to how the web has changed our lives, our everyday lives. Can you imagine having a web where interactive, providing scientists with every bit of data at their fingertips, what an impact that would have on the world? I mean, that's not it, but something along with that, because that's holy cow.
Right at the beginning, you want me to I get to the message eventually, but not in that first 60 seconds.
Well, but I think James is exactly right. And again, you gotta put this in context of, you have 12 minutes to convince someone that when that 12 minutes is over, that they want to talk to you some more. If you don't give them that, then the game's over. I mean, this is a business game. I mean, you convinced us in your first 5 minutes that no doubt you got the credentials in the technology, but you know what? Everyone that comes here has credentials. So what I agree that as difficult and as painful as it would be for you to distill your passion and your knowledge of all the stuff that goes into that, condense all of that into 2 sentences and basically says, the web does X, but you know what? The web does not yet do Y. And we've got the solution for Y. And then immediately go to, and here's the size of that market. And even if we get 1% of it, here's how much money we can make, da 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 da. And now, oh, wait a second, okay, you found another niche in the web. I don't even have to care anymore. I want to know what it is.
I actually wouldn't focus on the numbers, because if you say this correctly, it's such a fundamental step up that you can put any numbers on it like they're totally grabbed out of the air. I think is a challenge. I think what you really focus on is what the fundamental shift is, and I agree with your point, both of you, on the dramatic statement, because you talk about how the web has changed our lives, and then you say, but for the smartest people in the world, it's really just allows them to put a PDF file of what they've spent their whole life thinking about, and think how useful it would be if you could actually make that useful. Something along those lines again. But I would really focus on the
new web that's coming, and we better be ready, here it comes, and we're going to be there.
the wow statement of how you can transform the way that the scientific community works and whatever it is along this line. But I think it's there. I mean, the numbers, you're going to put some numbers up there just to say it's big, but they won't. I want you to justify what we put up in some extent, but I would not spend a lot of time, because
If Facebook spent all its initial 2 years deciding what the size of this market might be and how we're going to make this many dollars and so on and so forth, it would have been
that's my point.
One thing I would do, one thing I would do though, Neil, is the one slide I would not slip over is your competitors, and for 2 reasons. One is, I think it's important that you understand who else is out there, but by helping your audience understand that there are other players out there who are taking this very seriously as well, adds credibility to you and what you're trying to do.
And by the same token, saying that Google has tried to do something like this with Google Snippets, but they haven't been able to. And that's
I think to some degree, anyone that steps into the web arena has a problem. And that is that everyone knows that everyone's trying to do everything on the web. And so if you go the route of saying, okay, I'm not going to bother talking about the numbers because everyone knows how much you did, then your problem is, okay, convince me that in fact you are the guy and not the 1,000 other guys are trying to. They're going to solve that problem. And that's maybe, I mean, if you can do that, then you've got a winner. But it may be a harder sell. You can demonstrate that here's this opportunity, there's a demand for this service out there. And I think you've done that. I think that is probably an easy sell. That, hey, you can say, I work in this community and no one is providing me yet what we need to get this data. Okay, that's an easy sell, I believe. I believe you as soon as you start saying it. The harder part is to convince me that you've got a viable business, that's going to solve that problem. that's either you gotta maybe show me the numbers or show me that in some way you've got some unique stuff that's gonna solve it. Because the competitors, it's important that I know that you know who the competitors are. But then my first question is gonna be, well, you know, so what's gonna keep you from doing a better job than them? And so that's, in the web space, that's a tough one.
Yeah, and one of the fundamental things is that we're both smart people, but Eric is really one of the world's experts on the semantic web. He's got to know doing semantic web and all the websites, trying to sell cars, and he knows this technology inside and out. He knows science because he has a PhD in theoretical chemistry. I know science. I've been selling science software to do computations for all my life, almost, it seems like. And Hypercam has got dealers all around the world selling scientific software coming from Hypercam. So we're putting together two pieces in the sense of the technology, at least. The semantic web and the science are going together in an intimate fashion. Now you can say, well, are these good enough businessmen to do this properly? That's another question. But in terms of the opportunity of putting science and semantic web together, we have that component. I haven't made my company public, and so you could say I'm too interested in the technology myself, and that's one of the reasons that we want to hire some really serious, good business people and not try to. I don't want to run this thing. I'm too interested in technology. I'm not interested in
I would make that, I think it's a detail, but I would certainly make it clear about what the structure, what your roles will be. I can give you a page to get rid of,
Yes.
I'll send you a page.
Oh,
It might be it's totally irrelevant, but it's such a fundamentally different model, and 90% of the business comes from health rather than, I don't know, it's 90, but
okay.
it's a...
Yeah, well, what about this one?
You will change, I mean, you will sort of fundamentally change the way it's done. No, I like that.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Yeah, that was when, I don't know how far in you were when you got it, but that was when I was, oh, now I know what we're talking about.
Well, again, it
Yeah,
adds credibility
The
because.
issue I have with that is what I hear about what's so fundamentally disruptive about your business here is not certainly the first two tools up there, it's really the fourth one, the fourth bullet.
Right.
And that might, getting down this path of charging too much to publish your data, I think is such a small part of what your business is going to be. I would try and do is people start to look at you as a substitute for, whatever journal online is today or whatever, so I would just be careful doing that. But I like the picture.
That's the fundamental message for us, and that's what we're doing.
So I would, if anything,
Put that at the top.
I see that as your first side.
why would we, I don't know how much time we have, by the way.
50 minutes, we got another 10 minutes.
So, I understand why I, as a scientist, want to go and see all of the data that you've created, and I want to be able to manipulate and play with it. Why do you want me to be able to go and play with it and combine stuff from everything that you've gathered? Now, maybe that's because you're all friendly people who like to share everything.
That's definitely true.
Why us two as individuals?
No. So you run this gigantic data set to produce an output, and that's wonderful. You write very good stuff, you patent it. Why do you want me to have access to that data set for free to go and draw my own conclusions from it? For the good of the world?
Science is, yes, I'm a scientist at heart, and science needs to do this. Science can't.
I understand why it needs to do it. I understand the benefit to society, but selfishly to me, having spent all that time and effort to gather that data set, why do I want to give it to you for free? From a purely selfish perspective. Or do I have to because this is...
Well, I don't think one of the things about these editors, some people wanna make money, we're businessmen.
I'm not talking about the company either, I'm talking about the individual scientist. Why do I want to publish my data in a way that's accessible to you completely?
Oh, the ego.
Oh, but think of all the more cures for diseases that could be developed.
I'm totally bought into the good of society. I'm talking about selfish.
But see, you're thinking like a business person. Scientists
I
think
agree.
like scientists. I'm married to a neurobiologist, and
So he would take his data that he spent forever
you know,
gathering grounds
heartbeat,
for.
because it's not doing anybody any good sitting at the bottom of
He wants
a.
recognition for having created that data more than he wants the data.
But the recognition and the stroking can be done with PDF without access to the actual data.
Well, not if he wants people to play with it.
No.
Not to play with it. Yeah, absolutely not.
He wants people to have, use this data in any fashion whatsoever.
I guess the key is there's enough of a body of scientists have that mindset. To your point of this is my data and I'm proud of it. You go play with it, and if you can come up with something better than me, even better.
Think of it almost as high throughput screening. Okay?
Well,
That's
Yeah,
with
but
data.
those machines are not selfish, and they don't have ego. So that's the part.
Well, if he doesn't do it, then he can't get other people's data, and he wants other people's data. That's one facet. If there's a community of us, then I get to see all this other data, and boy, I can do much better science than I can do before by having access to it. And I have to be a member of that community in order to get other data, I have to contribute data.
And there's something else, as the amount of data is exploding, there's more and more data being generated. And then we're gonna have more health data with, medical records and everything getting digitized. The possibilities for research around data.
Yeah, data's a big issue. People are talking about data more and more, and it's a big issue in the future.
You say big data, you say big data early in the beginning?
I didn't mention that word, but that's a word that's floating around the news, big data.
Big data right there in the beginning.
I see your first slide is big data. Scientists will pay to get their data on the web. Because that's what it's about, right? Right now they can't. And you're providing a vehicle by which they're going to get through. Because as someone that's not strictly in the scientific community, I thought that was already out there.
They're not going to pay.
No, I think
Well,
that message
they
is the wrong
are.
message. That message's the wrong message.
Well, they are in the standpoint of someone's going to buy the software to make that possible.
No,
You gotta.
I'm gonna. This has to be seen as such. I mean, this you have to be successful. You have to understand. You have to be. It has to be such a common good that this is. They won't pay for the privilege of publishing their data online. They will want to put their output, their data out in this form. Because it's going to be the standard, because it's so useful that companies say no to it. I think that's very different to saying, I will pay
Well, the
to
reason I say
do it in this form.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. The reason, I'm trying to get the connection between this very powerful image of there's all these scientists out there with data and they don't have a means of effectively sharing it. And we provide that means, and we can make money doing that. I mean, that's because, before I write you a check, I want to see you make some money. And there's lots of models out there where people have solved problems and didn't make any money. I'm not interested in investing in those. I got to see, okay, that's great. So who's paying for this? I got to see that connection.
There's this balance, however, that you try to go after money too quickly, you don't capture the market.
That's fine. Then you show me in your business plan that leads to making money. Because I'm not interested and I'm playing the hard-ass VC. I don't want to write you a check unless I'm going to make money.
I think that, we're allowed to disagree with your discussion. I think that what you're proposing here, if you can show in this presentation what a fundamental shift this is, and a fundamental change in value proposition, you'll make money, in my view.
There's money out there.
All you have to say is, if you want to reference it at all, is to say, science is great, but it's no, look, if I can do this for science, what can I do for business? And I'm enormously happy. If this becomes de facto the data analysis everywhere, then I'm in great shape.
Well, I believe that I can say that the semantic web is data, and the two of them going together will take over the world.
Yes.
I can't necessarily say I will take over the world, but I can say with confidence that the semantic web and data will take over.
And you're trying to be a player in that field, and that's it. And who knows who the winners are, but our goal is to at least
So,
get one.
Neil, were you given a template for your presentation ahead of time?
Yes, that's why in some sense it's a little crazy, because I ended up here at the end kind of putting the recommended, there was, what is the problem, what is the solution, what is the product, what is the monetization, what is the market, what's the sales center, what's the management?
So all due respect, that model was developed because that's most of the time what the VCs want to hear and the order they want to hear it in.
Right.
So I would encourage you to
Get to that as quickly
go
as
back
possible.
and maybe
Or
look
put
at that
it
again.
earlier.
You have some great slides there, but
Don't duplicate it with what we already have.
no.
Don't effectively make two presentations.
But the way this ended up being organized is we had a pseudo presentation, and then I got this template from Gain saying this is what we want to see, and these are more at the end here than they are at the
I
beginning.
recognize them.
I put in a summary, but
Well, this is a trivial point on that particular page, or this is the point of structure. I'm going to hire a couple of senior members. We're going to stay there. I'm going to hire a senior. If you're not going to run this company for this, I would have a bullet on that. So I'm going to hire a CEO and very good. But to Jane's point, there's either a template or there isn't.
right, it's a bit funny that manager may be, in some sense, it's kind of a Polish word. Instead of CEO, you're talking about managers over there. And I think this word manager came from Europe, perhaps, and CEO is a much better concept. Yeah. I mean, we're not, we're going to be heavily involved in founding the company, getting it off the ground, and so on and so forth, but we're not going to run the company eventually as the model. So that should be made clear.
I think you have a great opportunity. If that can help in any way, let me know.
Excellent. You done now?
Great.
Thank you. Those are all very helpful comments. I don't know how many I can incorporate in the next hour here, but they were all very helpful, and they were all meaningful comments that you made. So I'll go and see what I can
You'll be great.
manage to review.
I love anyone who can walk around in the bag with that the theory and application of computation chemistry conference.
All right.
Impressive.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.